Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm KandyCorpse, you can call me Kay. This is Theodore and Alvin. Simon is on the other side of the screen. He's brooding a little bit. Let me turn it around so y'all can see. I'm sorry, my room's a mess. There he is. Oh my god. Sorry, I didn't mean to drop you. But yeah, my office is a mess. We have to keep cleaning it up, but ignore that. So yes, today is going to be some more true scary stories off of Reddit from the subreddit r/letsnotmeet. I'll put the usernames right here so you guys can go check out the stories themselves if you want. And without further ado, let's just dive right into it. Quick disclaimer for anyone who's wondering, this will not include the update to the crazy ex-beauty queen stalker story that I posted about recently. I think it was my last video. Not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure it was the last one. It's been a minute since I posted. I've been having a lot of shit going on. Sorry. But I will be posting that update soon because there is an update, and I believe it's just as long as the original, or also just pretty long in general. A lot of stuff has happened, so I will be updating. I will be going over that with you guys, but it will not be included in this video. This is 3 separate small stories. So the first story here is by user, and it is titled, "I wonder if I'm being paranoid, but I have a bad feeling about someone living near me." Hello everyone, here I am explaining what is happening to me, and I will try to be as precise as possible. I've lived in the same neighborhood for many years. This is also the case for many people, which means that even if everyone does not speak to each other, we often know people, at least by sight. A year ago, I passed a guy in the street near my house whom I'd never seen before, and I noticed him because he had a rather unusual physique, about 50 years old, tall, thin, emaciated face, dressed in a suit and tie. From the look of his face, he did not seem to be in good health. In short, nothing special so far, but what I have noticed for the past year is that there are times of varying length when he is everywhere I am. Actually triggering, because I am dealing with the situation of like actually being stalked. So not like triggering, but it immediately makes my mind like go to that, you know what I mean? Like I have been in that situation before where I'm like, it gets to a point where it's not a coincidence that I'm seeing this person everywhere, and like it gets to the point where they know what grocery store I go to, they know my work schedule, especially, even if it's not like the most similar, but generally, and like showing up around the same time. It's just, like having to change my routines, having to change jobs, having to move. Been in that situation, currently in that situation again. If I had a nickel for every time, you know that meme. That's what it's giving. I cannot. To give an example, last Wednesday I went to the pharmacy. He was behind me and also went to the pharmacy. Thursday I go to a neighboring town to do some shopping. I meet him on the street. Friday I leave my house to go to the gym. He's in front of my house and walks part of the way with me before taking another street. This kind of thing can last for several days, every day, and then stop before I see him consistently for several days. He consistently is in a suit and tie, as if he was going to work, but I see him at any time, weekdays, weekends, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. I don't know where he lives, but I know he is not in my immediate vicinity. I've never seen him talking to anyone on the street. So yes, I know, coincidence, most certainly, but I admit that in the end, I ask myself questions. It gives me a feeling of followed, even if I may be exaggerating. Has this kind of thing or strange feeling towards someone ever happened to you? OP, let me tell you, I am literally dealing with this situation where I'm like, okay, this could be a coincidence, but what is the coincidence that at 2 a.m. I catch you not only on my street, but I'm pretty sure I just saw you leaving the driveway of my apartment building when you had no business being there. Why are you standing on the corner staring at me while I'm working, and then when I catch you or someone else catches you and I'm told by a customer, hey, there's a creepy guy outside just standing staring at the store, and then you're running away? Like, I'm in that situation, and you could easily argue coincidence every single time, but I promise you it is not a coincidence. And the reason why stalking is scary is because you don't know if or when they'll escalate, and typically it's a matter of when, because they often will escalate at some point. Sometimes it's a stranger, you just happen to see them that one time and something in their brain just like clicks and they think you have some sort of connection, so they keep coming around, they keep trying to build up that confidence, they just keep happening to see you in public, but they're actually following you everywhere, they're learning your routine, and shit like that is scary because you don't know if, like I say, if, but typically when they're going to hurt you. Even if it's someone you know, that doesn't mean they can't just go off the deep end. And like, that is what's truly scary about stalking, is it could just be someone watching you and following you, and it's just creepy and unsettling, but you don't know what could set that person off. And like, that's terrifying. So I totally get what OP is saying when they say that they feel like they are being followed, like 100%. That man is following her, or him, or them. I don't think it's specified. I'm just like assuming it's a woman, I think, but just because like my situation. But it is scary. Like, if you've ever been in that situation, it is scary because you just don't know if they're harmless or not. Like, that's the scary part. Yeah, and a lot of comments are saying the same thing. You're not being paranoid. Like, this actually is creepy. I'd be scared too. Change your routine. Pretty much all the same things. Someone said to take a picture and ask people in the neighborhood if they recognized him or even knew anything about him. And then if they do know him, just like ask how or whatever, and just kind of explain what's going on. And then they also mentioned getting security cameras, updating locks. I am going to be getting security cameras. The courts are being petitioned to pay for mine because of the situation I'm in. It's just something that I haven't been able to get. I've been wanting to get them since I moved in, to be honest, but because this has become more and more of an issue the last few months for me, I might be fortunate enough to where the courts pay for that for me, which would be really nice if they did, because they're expensive. Okay, so this second story is by user whatever, I don't know. I'm just gonna put it there. And it is titled, Airbnb owner acted weird. I left when I saw a chair with ropes in my bedroom. So this one is tagged as NSFW. The first one was as well, but it didn't seem as bad. But this one might be a little bit graphic, so just that warning. I was watching a YouTube video where the YouTuber tells let's not meet stories of weird encounters with landlords or in hotels, and it reminded me of this one that happened to me a few years ago. That's crazy, because that's what I'm doing right now. Okay, anyway, disclaimer, that might not be as scary as other stories in the subreddit, but watching those videos made me paranoid, which is why I decided to leave the Airbnb rather than risk being a victim in a true crime story. I'm sorry, I just yawned while doing that. I wanted to get through that sentence. I'm tired, y'all. It's 4:45 in the morning. I was supposed to be asleep hours ago, because I gotta get up at like 9 a.m., but it's fine. I don't gotta work tomorrow. I'll just sleep during the day. It's fine. As I said, this happened a few months ago, if I remember correctly, in January or February of 2024. Okay, so this is actually recent. I was visiting family in southern France and did not want to stay at their place, even if they offered, for personal reasons that I won't share here. Note that I visit them quite often and usually last minute, so I would never book the same place, and I would sometimes book a hotel room, which were more expensive, but better for me as I didn't necessarily want to socialize with the host. Even when I would book Airbnbs, I would always search for flats, studio flats, and not just a room in a flat/house where people live, as I would want to be on my own, so this is an important criteria for me. So I booked this Airbnb within walking distance to where my family members stay, and it looks very nice on paper. I think it was marketed as a house or ground floor flat with access to a yard and a garden. It was probably one of the cheaper options. I don't remember for sure, but I wasn't going there for leisure or planning to have a very nice place for myself, to have enjoyable holidays, if that makes sense. So I really wanted something for convenience and didn't want to pay extra for any kind of luxury. There was not a lot of reviews, but a few that were pretty positive. So I go to the place with my suitcase, Waiting in front of the house, I contact the landlord who should give me the keys, but he's late. I spent at least 1 hour waiting outside, and I'm trying to be patient, realizing at least the neighborhood was pretty nice and it seemed safe, even if I needed to walk the areas that are slightly dodgy to get there from where my relatives stay. The landlord finally arrives. He seemed like a good man and apologizes profusely, saying he was in another town visiting his cousin or friends, and time just flew by. First red flag. He says they were drinking and didn't have time to sober up, so he had to speed on the highway on his motorbike while being tipsy/drunk. He stops and asks me half jokingly not to say that in my review. I get a bit serious and tell him he shouldn't drink and drive, but he says he really didn't want to make me wait further. I tell him I won't flag that in my review. Spoiler alert, I will, but I didn't want to start off on the wrong foot. The guy is nice otherwise and seems trustworthy, very chatty and open to socializing. And frankly, I was just happy I could finally get in and drop off my stuff. The second red flag was when he tells me I'll be living in a small flat adjacent to the bigger house he lives in, but I shouldn't worry because I would have my own place, own bathroom, own kitchen, etc. I didn't like that too much, but I actually think it might be good because I'm not super comfortable being on my own in a ground floor accommodation, knowing anyone can get into the yard and access the front door. Again, I'm paranoid. So knowing that someone I know is close by in case something happens gives me a sense of safety. God, was I wrong? He shows me around, all seems okay. It's pretty old, as I said, but I wasn't looking for luxury. The part where I would say is on the lower level than the street, not exactly like a basement because there is access to a garden, but I need to walk down a set of stairs outside to get to the flat through the backyard. This shows mostly when I'm in the bedroom, as I see through the window that it's clearly a lower level. Next red, or rather yellow flag, is when he shows me a door close to the bedroom, which is the connecting door between my part and his house. I was kind of expecting that, but I thought he might need to at least cross the yard or access the front door to get into my part of the house. He says this door stays locked, and it's locked anyway. Not as a warning for me to try to open it, but more like a you'll notice that there's a door here, it's useless for you, and what's beyond it is not part of what you're renting. We chat a little bit, too long for my taste because I was tired and still annoyed at his lateness, not really in the mood to socialize. He gives me his phone number because Airbnb chat feature is not good, it's easier to use WhatsApp, and then he leaves. I start to settle down, open my suitcase, get changed before leaving to visit the family. I then go back to the place in the evening and decide to have a shower. If I remember correctly, what I'm saying next happened before I took a shower because I remember locking the bathroom door, which I never do when I know I'm on my own, and I recall being quite anxious when taking the shower. So, the biggest red flag, before the last drop, I'm sitting on the bed and I hear a knock and someone saying my name. 2 seconds later, before I get the chance to answer and even understand where the noise is coming from, I hear keys turning and a lock and a door opening. As you might have guessed, it's the connecting door next to the bedroom. The guy enters and says he can't find his phone and if he might have left it downstairs. I'm a bit shocked because if he had come by 10 minutes later, I would have probably been naked, ready to take a shower, or maybe walking around in a towel since I'm supposedly alone. I know it might sound like I'm a pussy, but keep in mind I'm a relatively young woman alone in a house with a man in his 40s or 50s who has control over when he can get into my place at any time. I stay polite and try to tell him that no, I haven't seen his phone. I would have noticed there's literally nothing except my open suitcase on the couch in the bedroom. He still gets in, speaking a lot and very fast while I'm sitting there not fully realizing what's happening and not having a chance to tell him to leave. He looks around the flat and obviously doesn't find the phone. He says he's sorry and probably asks if everything is fine, if I had dinner, something like that, and then he leaves again. At this point, I'm really wondering if I should stay or not, since I know you get refunded only if you cancel 2 nights in advance. I just know that I would lose my money for the night that had already started. It was after 11 p.m. and the following one, knowing I had booked at least 4 nights. I really needed to take a shower, but questioning if I should. I try to see if there are available hotel rooms, but it's already too late to book or fully booked. I decided to take my shower really quick, wondering if he could hear the shower, and decided that he forgot something else just to get in again. Nothing bad happened. I go back to the bedroom, get dressed as fast as I can just in case, and I sit down and I think. I decide that I will stay for the night and I'll probably be less paranoid in the morning if I'm still alive. That's when I notice the chairs in the bedroom. There are two. One of them has ropes tied around the armrests. The chairs are in good shape, and the rope is definitely not there to keep the armrests fixed for the chair, as they are just loose. To this day, I have no idea why they were there. I still think I should sleep there just for the night and try to use a chair to block the door handle in the bedroom, like in the movies. But guys, this only works in the movies. I try with both chairs to pile them up, even trying to use the ropes one way or another. The handles can still go down enough to open the door easily. I think that at least if I leave them in front of the door, I'll hear if someone tries to open it, but the door opens the other way, and in any case, I didn't know what I'd even do if the noise woke me up. Again, I'm paranoid and anxious, but living alone, abroad, my motto is to never ever take risks for my own safety, as I'm usually the one who can save myself, so better avoid a tricky situation. Doesn't mean I never go out, but I won't get drunk around people I don't trust, and I would take a cab if I felt unsafe going home on my own after midnight. I now live in a city that's rather safe, but had too many bad encounters. Unfortunately, nothing unusual for most women not to be careful. So from an external point of view, this is a story about someone booking an Airbnb with good reviews with a nice and friendly landlord who's just overly open because he likes to meet people, and the ropes were just a detail. But for my anxious, paranoid self, this is the premise for a horror story or thriller where you shout at the stupid and trusting victim to get away ASAP before the guy comes back. So I decided to call my brother, who came to pick me up around midnight for me to spend the rest of my stay at his place. TLDR, I left my Airbnb in the middle of the night because my Airbnb host entered my flat through a connecting door without warning, and after I saw the ropes tied around the armrest of a chair in my bedroom. I completely understand why OP is anxious and concerned, because from the sound of it, where they were staying was actually different than what was listed. So that immediately is like a red flag. I would be like, hey, this is not exactly like, this is different. But again, that could just be, I don't know if it's like a language barrier thing because they say a different country. So maybe it's more of like this elderly landlord, like the way he kind of said it, it just like didn't come across correctly. I don't know, but maybe you get what I'm saying. Maybe it was a little bit of a language barrier, or it was just like an issue with the app where it just like looked really weird. I don't know, but like I understand showing the door and being like, hey, there is this connecting door, and then being like, but it stays locked. Just wanted to let you know that it was there so that way you didn't, you know, have any questions. This is here. I feel like that is something that should be listed on the Airbnb website. That's a good thing to put and not just tell people. Like, I get that some people might not book because of that, but if they're already there and they're gonna like be upset about it, like it would just be easier to put that in the listing. So that is kind of weird. But what's actually crazy is the fact that he showed up drunk, showed up late. It doesn't matter that he was friendly. He also, again, the chair thing is actually scary as fuck. But the fact that he might have knocked, but he didn't wait for an answer. He just walked right in, unlocked the door and walked right in. Said, where's my phone? That is unsettling. I also, if I were, because I'm in my early 20s, if I were traveling alone abroad in a country and I was by myself, because this woman was by herself, I would also feel very uncomfortable. And I feel like even if you're just like a friendly older person, whatever, like that is still something that you should kind of recognize that would make her uncomfortable. So I do not blame OP for leaving, and I agree that that's like the beginning of like a horror or thriller story where, again, yeah, you're yelling at the victim. You're like, it's so obvious, like this is so obvious, what are you doing? I completely understand why they got out of there. The chair is weird, the door is weird, the whole vibe is weird. I would get out of there too. All of the comments seem to agree. They're all saying that OP was not overreacting. Some of them saying that they're not paranoid people personally and they would still be untrusting of the situation or that the situation was tricky or scary. So the general consensus is no, OP was not overreacting in the slightest. This was a weird situation, and people are glad that OP was able to get out of there and that their brother was able to come get them, because this, again, was a very creepy situation. That's very unsettling, and OP is very lucky that nothing happened to them. And maybe there's a reason why there's only a few reviews. Maybe only a few people have made it out. Who knows? Okay, so this is our final story posted by this user right here, and it is also NSFW. Also, trigger warning, there is going to be mentions of violence, of domestic abuse, of assault, etc. So if things like this you are sensitive to or affects you in any type of way, please go ahead and skip this last story or skip to the end. If you want to hear my take on it, you can just skip right to the end when I'm no longer reading. But just that trigger warning for anyone who may be sensitive to that sort of topic. These things will be brought up. So I just want everyone to be aware. I have warned you. This story is titled, "My Ex Tried to Kill Me." I, 22F at the time of writing this, was almost killed by my ex-boyfriend, am about 30 now. I will be changing the names as to protect myself. I'll start with a quick backstory. At the time of the attack, I was 19, almost 20. My ex, Gavin, was 27. We had a big chow chow and a cat, the dog being his and the cat being mine. We lived in a 3-bedroom house, the layout being you walk right into the living room in front of you, then the dining room, and off to the left, the kitchen, open concept, living and dining room, closed kitchen. Down a longish hallway, we had the bathroom to the right, the main bedroom at the end of the hall on the right, and then 2 other bedrooms on the other 2 walls. A few months before we had allowed a friend to stay with us, Lacey, it didn't end well as she was just taking advantage of us. The week leading up to the attack, Gavin had just gotten back from a work trip, which I believe was about 3 to 4 weeks away from home. The week he was back, he was completely out of it, not being able to complete a thought. I'd ask or tell him something, and less than 5 minutes later, he'd completely forget or just not have heard me, just off in some other world almost. One day I was very frustrated with this, as I'd asked for help with chores for him to take the garbage out, only to be ignored. One day he said that if it continues, he wanted me to slap him. We'd gone out for dinner with his mom 2 days prior to the attack, and she was obviously very worried about him, as there was clearly something wrong. At the time, the only mental disorder he had or was aware of was OCD, in which I am now even more convinced that this is not what he had by any means. The day of the attack, we'd just gotten back from grabbing some takeout, and we were sitting on the couch in the living room. I'd been painting my nails, and he was playing Mario Kart. He looked over at me and said, "Lacey put a curse on my family." I was dealing with my own really poor mental health at the time, so I wasn't really in a space to where I could be forcing on his. Okay. I have BPD. I wasn't sure what to do, so I suggested that he just hop in a cold shower, as it helped him earlier in the week to just reset a little bit. He walked into the bathroom, was muttering to himself. It just felt so off, and I don't know how to describe it, and I didn't feel safe. I walked over and asked if I could call his mom for him and maybe invite her over for supper, kind of beating around the bush that I wanted her to come help him. He looked at me and just started yelling that all he needed was me. I walked out and started for the living room as I was calling his mom. He came out of the bathroom naked and started yelling at Ollie, the dog, to discipline me and attack me. Mind you, he was trained as my guard dog. At this point, I believe his mom had answered the phone and heard what was happening. He started to call me Lacey and that I needed to pay for what I did. I ran to the bedroom with my phone. His mom still on the line. He kicked down the door and smashed my head into our mirrored closet doors and threw my phone to the ground. He was screaming that he was going to kill me. I scrambled out of the bedroom door trying to get to the front door. As I was passing the kitchen, he got a hold of me, wrapped his arms around my throat, again saying that he was going to kill me. I remember looking over to the table and seeing my cat Sterling, all puffed up. I had never seen him so scared. I was fighting to not go unconscious. I couldn't breathe. I clawed at him, trying to get his arms off my throat. I remember starting to see black specks in my vision and thinking, I'm gonna die. What is he gonna do with my body? He asked me if I knew what it was like to be raped. This is the part where I'm not sure if he was actually out of his mind, as I had been raped before, and it was a year to that month. I was very open about how that had been affecting me. He threw me to the ground and put his foot over my head as if to stomp on it. This was the only time I'd seen his eyes through the attack, and they were almost lifeless, his pupils so dilated you could barely see the iris. He was yelling over and over again, admit it, Lacey. You know what you did, admit it. I just started apologizing, doing and saying anything I could to make him happy. This seemed to work as I got the opportunity to scramble to my feet and race out the door. I just wished I'd left the screen door open. I ran from house to house in nothing but shorts and a sweater in February in the coldest provinces in Canada. I'd gotten to maybe 2 or 3 houses before I heard Ollie screaming. No. I didn't think that it would have animals in it too. It's a sound that I can never get out of my head. I just dropped to the ground screaming and crying, Gavin, leave him alone. I knew he'd killed the dog. At this point, a bunch of the neighbors had heard me and came running to help. An older couple called the police and brought me into their home, not knowing if they were putting their own lives at risk. My parents were living in a completely different province. Someone gave me their phone to call my mom. She was out for supper with some friends, and I just told her Galvin killed the dog and tried to kill me. The police finally showed up after what seemed like hours, 5 to 6 cars, firearms out. They used the megaphone to tell him to come out with his hands up. He walked out naked and covered in blood. Once they had gotten him into the car, a police officer came to talk to me while the others searched the house. Shortly after, an officer came up and asked how many dogs we had. I told him 1 and a cat. I asked if Ollie was still alive, and they told me he was dead in the bathtub. Gavin had killed him in the living room and then brought him to the bathroom, filled up the tub, and put Ollie's body in it. I had asked about the cat, and they said they couldn't find him just yet. I was sure he'd killed my sweet boy too. Sterling was the only thing I could think about. I went into a panic and was no longer able to give them any more information, as I was basically in tunnel vision. Where's my cat? I want my cat. Find my cat. The officers asked if there was any treats that they could use to coax him out and what his hiding spots were. They ended up finding Sterling alive but scared, and they couldn't get to him as he was scared and attacking the officers. They blocked off the worst of the scene and had me go get Sterling. As much as they did block off, there was just so much blood, and the smell of blood and feces was overpowering. Sterling was in the bedroom, on the bed, just crying. I scooped him up and asked the officers to find my vape. Of all things. As I was walking out of the house, Gavin's mom had just gotten out of the car. She asked me where Ollie was, and all I could say was, Gavin killed him. She dropped to the ground and started bawling. I just walked past her and put Sterling in her car and sat in her front seat, not sure what to do, as I didn't want to go with her. In that moment, I hated her for what her son did to me and Ollie. To this day, I regret how I acted towards her. I had no right to be so cruel to someone who was also now suffering. My mom had gotten a hold of my aunt that lived a few towns over, so once I was done with the officers, I was to go with her. Once the police were done doing whatever it was they were doing in the house, I had to go back in to get clothes and such. They forgot to close the bathroom door. Luckily, I wasn't the one who walked by first. It was Gavin's mom. The sound she made was horrible. Eventually, my aunt came and I went with her. The next day, I had to go back to the house to get my things. The police had gotten someone to take care of the body, but not the mess of blood and the bodily fluids and pee and poop. Half of the stuff, I didn't even know what it was. His mom, sister, and I had to clean the house. Blood everywhere, a lot of broken furniture. His mom was kind enough to clean all my bathroom things and throw away anything that couldn't be saved. Unfortunately, I had African black soap. That night, I weighed myself, and when I looked down, I was washing myself with a bar of soap. coaked in Ollie's blood. I think it was supposed to say washed myself, but there's a lot of typos. 2 weeks later, Sterling and I were on a plane to see my mom. The court case took 2 years, and I only later found out that he had gone and loaded our guns, and for the longest time I didn't want to know that he killed Ollie, but when going through the evidence, an officer mentioned a baseball bat. Not knowing, I didn't want to know, and he only got 10 months of house arrest. To this day, 2 years later, he still tries to contact me, blaming me for not getting him help. I think the worst part is I do partly blame myself, not just for not knowing to get him help, but also for not leaving the door open for the animals, for bringing the baseball bat into the house weeks prior because I was too lazy to walk it to the shed. Thank you for reading, and I hope maybe I can find someone who can relate to the story so I don't feel so alone in my experience. I know it's horrible to say, but it's just hard to speak to anyone about it that hasn't been through something somewhat similar. Any advice or comments are welcome. Again, thank you for taking the time to read. I know it was long and somewhat choppy. My memory of that day is both a blur and also like I'm reliving it. I'll never meet him again. That is honestly so horrifying to have to experience. And in that last paragraph, when OP says, I'm sorry for saying that, but it's just easier to talk to someone and comforting to talk to someone who's been there. I 100% relate to that. Some of the things that like I've seen and I've experienced, I would never ever wish that upon anyone, not even my worst enemy, because it truly is the most awful, most horrifying thing that I've ever been through. And I know I wouldn't want anyone else to suffer like that, no matter what. And it truly is one of those things where, of course, like not the same situation, but like if I've been through something that's like deeply traumatizing to me, I don't want that to happen to someone else. But if I find someone else who's been through it and understands, I feel like when I talk about it, I can do more than just make jokes, because, you know, like laughing at myself and laughing at my trauma, because if I don't, I'll just cry. So instead of like making jokes or whatever, I can like kind of trauma dump, and we can like talk about it, and we can actually have serious conversations where we can be emotional and we can talk about the effect that this really has on us and really kind of like let it sink in. Whereas like when people don't get it, they're like, oh, like they can like sympathize or whatever, they can be like, oh, like I'm sorry, that's a really shitty situation. But until you've been there and you can say like, dude, I've been there and that really fucking sucks, and have that person who can say that to you, and then you can just kind of like talk back and forth about it, I completely relate to that so much. And this is absolutely horrifying. And this person, it sounds like they were assaulted, or I don't know if they were, whatever mental health break they had, somehow related it to OP's assault and kind of like took it as their own. But it, from the sound of it, it sounded, because they kept saying the old roommate's name, it almost sounds like something happened between them and that the old roommate assaulted him, and that he kind of like, it seems like it happened on that work trip, and that's what kind of made him like break and snap. And then from there it was just like something was going to happen. But that obviously that doesn't excuse it. Like with something like that, like clearly that person needed help before it ever got to this point. And it is just awful for so many people in this situation. That is horrifying. That is a terrible thing that nobody should ever have to experience ever in their life. Like genuinely, nobody should have to go through something like that. On that note, I'm going to end the video here. This is long enough. I'm tired. That last story definitely was enough for me personally. So that being said, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. I appreciate getting to talk to you in the comments and getting messages on Instagram, even though I don't always reply super quickly, whether it's because I'm busy or I just don't always see my message requests. But I love when people message me and ask questions or have recommendations or tell me what their favorite series is. I really love stuff like that. My socials are all the same as YouTube. It's all KandyCorpse, and it'll be typed out below, probably somewhere in the description. So that will be it for this video. Again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you so much, and I will be seeing you in the next video.